Hey, I'm Megan, a developer advocate here with Shopify, and today we'll be using an access token generated by Shopify to request product information through the Admin API. If you're familiar with web development, you know that APIs are sets of protocols and rules used to define how you can integrate your application with its source. The APIs provided by Shopify are no different, and they are the primary way that you as an app developer can integrate your app with Shopify. Shopify has a few APIs available that you can use, but today we will be focusing on the Admin API since we only want product information. You can find out more about the different types of APIs available if you watch this video by my friend Liz. She goes into detail more about each one. The Admin API gives your app the ability to read and write Shopify store information. This includes products, orders, shipping, and more. And because of this, all requests to the Admin API need to be authenticated. I will be demonstrating how to make authenticated requests using both Curl and a plugin for VS Code called ThunderClient. You can use whatever HTTP client that you prefer. I'm not going to pick sides in this case. So first, in the Shopify admin, I'm going to create a new application. Notice here that this is a custom application, and this is fine for my use case because it's only going to be installed on this singular store, but you can also create public apps as well. We'll call this app test API app. Cool, now the app's created. From here, part of the authentication and authorization process involves us telling Shopify exactly what information we would like to request through their APIs. And we can do this by specifying the API scopes. We can configure these scopes here, and for the purposes of this demo, I'm only going to be selecting the read product scope because all I need to do for this app is read product information. Here you can see the access token that is generated by Shopify now that the app is installed. We will send this access token along in the header for any HTTP request that we make to the Admin API. This is how Shopify will identify and authorize us to get the information that we are asking for. Now that the app is installed and ready to go, let's take a look at how exactly we might request that information. You can see here that the URL for the GraphQL Admin API endpoint is as follows. We would fill in the store name here. This specifies the Admin API. This is the version. I'm just going to stick with the latest. That's fine with me. And then we're going to be specifying the GraphQL endpoint. We do have REST endpoints available too. Cool. Now that we know what the endpoint is for the information that we're looking for, let's take a look at how we might make a curl request to this endpoint while still including our access token in the header. So in iTerm here, I'm going to go ahead and just make a normal curl request. I'm going to fill in the Shopify store as the first part of that URL like we saw in the documentation. And of course, the application type is application JSON. From here, we have to include the access token as a header, like I mentioned, so that Shopify can identify us. And the name of this header is Shopify Access Token. It's important to keep your access token secret. You wouldn't want to commit this to Git or share it with anyone because it is how Shopify identifies you in the future. The next step is to actually define the query that we want to send to GraphQL. In this case, I'm just going to ask for the first 10 products and their IDs and titles. That's a simple enough example to prove that this authentication token will work. All right, so as you can see here, this is the product information for the first 10 products in my Shopify store, including their IDs and titles. You can see if I try to make this same request again, and let's say I accidentally mess up the access token, I should get an error message that's pretty clear. And there we go. The invalid API key or access token, unrecognized, invalid, wrong password. All that information is telling me that my access token is incorrect and Shopify was unable to authenticate me to make this request. All right, so we're going to switch over to VS Code and do the same thing that we just did in Curl, but we're going to use ThunderClient instead. So because it's a GraphQL query, we are going to switch it to a post. We'll use that same endpoint that we had before that includes my Shopify store URL. So we can just switch to the header tab here and include the X Shopify access token. And we'll paste in the value of the same token that we used in that curl request. So now in the body tab, we can define exactly what we're asking for from the GraphQL endpoint. We'll make the same query as we did in the curl request. One thing I did notice is that you do have to send over a variable object in order to make a request using this GraphQL editor. So because everything is just static in this query, I'll just send along an empty object as the variables. And you can see here on the right that this is the first 10 products in my store, including their ID and their title. If I were to mistakenly add the wrong access token or something got mixed up with the header, you will see the same error that we saw in the curl. All right, that covers it. That's all the steps that you need to generate an API access token in order to request information from your Shopify Admin API. You can use tools like Curl or ThunderClient or whichever HTTP client that you prefer, Postman, Insomnia. The options are endless, but practicing these API calls before you actually start your development is a great way to speed up your actual development to make sure that your API requests are functioning properly and you're getting the data back correctly. If you're building out your application with Ruby, Python, PHP, or Node, Shopify has some great client libraries as well that can help simplify this process, and you can check them out here using the link in the description below. For more information about Shopify development, subscribe to this channel, review documentation on shopify.dev, and join the community by asking questions in Discord, Slack, or joining our community forums. Thanks. See you there.